Now, we all know that this is a distinct season. We all know that this time of Christmas has a whole lot of qualities, including the busyness. But I've discovered in my trekking through this season in 2022, I've been reintroduced to takeaway. And I didn't realise how subconsciously this morning when I chose the socks I was going to wear, I put my takeaway socks on. It's got a picture of pizza and a hamburger. Not real, of course, so you're not going to eat my socks. But I thought, isn't it amazing how sometimes subconsciously things happen? But takeaways, it's a term that I had previously just put aside to one, that's referring to food, fast food and all that sort of stuff. But in actual fact, nowadays, I'm sitting in places and listening to other scripture teachers, Bible teachers, and they're saying to you, I want you to be ready what are you going to take away from this gathering? I'm thinking, that's very contemporary terminology, so I thought I might start to use it. I might be a bit late, but I'll start to use it. But the point is that whenever we come to a space of life, of engaging, whatever the context is, what is it that we move away from that particular context, and what do we take with us? Okay? We come into worship, we come as a people of faith, and we come in this particular season, and we'll spend this time together, and what is it that we will take with us that will actually be a part of our continuing journey? Or if I just trek through something and nothing stuck. No, I came in, I go out, I'm the same person. I'm one who believes that in faith, whenever we gather in worship and we're under the testimony of the word and we appreciate there are people where the Spirit of God is working, that I am never the same. I have just changed. I changed the moment I heard that song this morning. I changed the moment I took those emblems. I changed the moment a word was quickened to me. Never the same again. And it's that amazing experience of being literally transformed in these moments that I trust you can appreciate. Now, as I said before, this is a distinct season. It is Christmas. We celebrate the identity of Jesus stepping into history. Whatever time it might have been, somebody might like to argue with you that Jesus wasn't born on December the 25th. Oh, rattle on. I'm celebrating at some point, in actual fact, every point. If I take the testimony of that song, did you receive the testimony of the song? Or did we think, hasn't Lee got a beautiful voice? Hasn't Meg got a beautiful voice? And she can play guitar, multitask. And you sort of think, why did I sit in this space? I'm sitting in this space to engage, to encounter. And God is ministering, His Spirit is moving in a whole variety of ways in this very building this morning for the purpose of revelation, for the purpose of stirring, for the purpose of engaging, for the purpose of touching your spirit, touching your heart. Let's take the words of the song. How much space have I got for Jesus right now? Lord, here I am. Full parameters. My history, my circumstances, my thoughts, my feelings, my ambitions, my anxieties. You can have the lot. Work on all of them. Settle down, Peter. Remember your heart condition. It is. It's so my takeaways. And in some ways, yes, again, I'm possibly making use of the place in which I find myself. I'm on the platform, it's an elevated position, I've got a responsibility, I'm talking to your life, speaking into your lives, and I trust that you can gather with me. All right, you can actually identify your takeaway from recent events from this morning. So I want to begin with this. Now, I don't know if that twigs anything with you, but for the last 3 Sundays, that's been the word I've used. Beginnings. And you would have heard, as Barry read this morning, in that opening few verses of the Gospel of Luke, that term appears again. of the beginnings of this, and obviously Luke is engaging, as it were, historical context and information and detail and everything about the life of Jesus. And he wants to be able to present that to somebody so that they can begin a relationship with Jesus with as much detail, with as much comprehension, with as much understanding as they possibly can. And this morning is another opportunity for us to experience beginnings. Because I've never experienced this day before. I've sat in a number of Christmas services, Advent services over the years, and that's all been a part of the journey, but I've never been in this space before. I've never heard that opening song. I've never heard the song presented in ministry. This is all new space. We will have the opportunity this morning to begin. And you might say, I've been following Jesus for years. Good on you. You're about to begin. Because every day is a beginning. If it's not beginning, I've arrived. Is that right? Let me inform you, you have not arrived. There is beginning for the first time, and there might be people here this morning who have, the Spirit of God's been working in your life for a little while recently. You've heard something, somebody's spoken into your life, something's happened, and you've become aware of just the reality of God getting your attention, and He's saying, I want you to begin this morning with Jesus. I want you to begin this life journey of a faith connect with the reality of the living Son of God in that amazing form of the child in the manger of Bethlehem. I want you to start right now, today, trusting. It's a massive stretch in your mind, but let me tell you, as the angel said to Zechariah, hey, who are you working with? I'm Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God. It's who you're working with. See, this morning you might be thinking, I'm working with Pastor Peter. He's manageable. Let me tell you, God isn't. We think we can wrap God up and put him over in the corner and say, I'll be back when I've done whatever I want to do with all my dreams and ambitions or whatever. And he's saying, that's not how it works. I'm putting before you this morning an opportunity to begin. It's amazing. The wonderful. Now, you knew it would happen. Peter gets started and then he gets diverted. Diversion number one. I'll be back to those beginnings. Maggie and I were graciously invited to attend the breakup evening meal for the Des and Elaine home group. What a lovely evening. Now already Des's devotion has been mentioned. Just to say, this is how things happen in life. Okay, sometimes the Lord gets different individuals to get the same takeaway. So Des started his devotion by making a quote out of Leviticus. Now, we all know that Leviticus is the go-to place when it comes Christmas time. I mean, clearly the narrative was all about, I don't know what. But I listened closely. Des might have thought I was sleeping. No, Des, I had my eyes closed and I was listening. And guess what I heard? Leave space for people who might draw on the precious resource of your time. And of course, Elaine amplified it. And it had the two dimensions. But I heard that word and I thought, oh, that's my takeaway. Along with a few leftover sandwiches, a couple of sausage rolls and a cream cake. So that was all takeaway. That's disappeared. But the word that I was given, I carried with me. Now, just so happens, I had another invitation. Margie and I were invited to join a celebration of Anne's birthday. She's still recovering. She's obviously eaten too much. That birthday cake had 4 layers to it and enough sugar to, I don't know, fire up a turbine for the next 3 months, I reckon. But I sat in that birthday party. I had greeted Anne, and I'd recognised her son and a couple of others. And then I recognised a couple of folk from the church here, and I thought, now I've got to be, now what can I do? Leave space for others who might draw on the precious resource of your time. Wasn't it interesting? Now, I sat next to Clive for some time, and Clive might have noticed, I'm offended by you, Clive. I'm going somewhere else. So I went and sat with one of the grandsons. I thought, this is an amazing conversation. What am I doing here? Thanks, Des. But you get my point? The Lord gives a word into our lives. We take it with us and suddenly says, hey, let's work it. Now, has this got anything to do with Christmas? It's got everything to do with Christmas. The gift of the Son I receive. I receive the gift of the identity of Jesus and step into a faith relationship with him, and he says straight away, let's work it. I'm not going to wait till next Christmas before you come back. Let's work this relationship. And so I have this wonderful opportunity. I don't mind saying to you that beginnings is a very significant part of it. That each day there is an opportunity to, as it were, begin the relationship. Not from the beginning, but from the point to which I have reached. The point that we have reached. Can you understand what I'm saying? I hope you can. Because this is the venture of receiving, as it were, this amazing gift. It's not a gift as in wrapped up in paper and unwrap it and it's all fixed. But it's the gift of the reconnect and the reality of a relationship with Jesus. And maybe for the first time, there's people here this morning and the Spirit of God's been working on you and saying, I want to start that relationship. I want to be at that beginning point where I experience the reality of Jesus in my life, his living presence by his Spirit. Now, I look around, and it's good to have the visitors. I'm glad Elaine ventured into that space where she identified them all. I'm looking at, I've forgotten her name. It's Riley. I did remember. And that's Taylor, and that's Mitch. What's your mum's name, Mitch? Oh, Jenny, that's right. Yes, good. Now, I recognise as I look around the rest of the room, some of you are quite mature. Is that a fair thing to say? Well, there's one there, 90 years old. She's very mature. But mature in the sense of faith-wise. And you can say, well, I can think of my beginning with Jesus. But I'm talking about, are you at a point where you need a fresh beginning? Now, the scripture speaks on a couple of occasions. One of them in the book of Revelation, which I'm not going to open up, by the way, those who are interested in the book of Revelation, that it encourages people in a community to return to their first love, to know the dynamic. And here's where that song at the very beginning, I'm sure that's what was happening for me. Just that freshness and the spine tingling that says, that's not just music. That's lovely music. I love the vocals. I love the images. But the Spirit of God's doing something. Up and down. Why not? It's the thing he loves to do, is to bring freshness into the relationship. And that draws a response, as it were. And it... pardon me. That there's this wonderful opportunity to experience this, what this narrative describes as the beginnings. My second takeaway this morning is, that's the beginning bit, so, is the peace bit. It's possibly the most commonly used blessing that I've seen being exchanged in the Christian community. And I just wonder how deep it's running. Now, this is my takeaway. You don't have to take any of this personally. I just want to share it with you. This is something where I have been, as it were, in this specific season, stirred and touched. the peace of God. We share the blessing of peace. What a wonderful blessing that is. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among those with whom he is pleased. This season has a very strong, as it were, point of reference to that blessing. Just wonder how far it reaches. Well, I came across an article. It was titled, "Who Made the First Move in the Christmas Truce?" Have people heard of the Christmas truce? Everybody. Hey, that's good. In that case, this narrative is going to sound very familiar. And then we ask ourselves, as the narrative concludes, how deeply has the blessing permeated my life? As I begin, and as Leon so powerfully portrayed at the end of that song, the name that was given, this child. I can't remember them all, but I can remember the Prince of Peace, because that's one I need to remember. When I had heard this Christmas truce narrative a number of times, I thought to myself, is this reality? Did this really happen? Or is this simply a nice story that people have brought into the Christmas season? Well, as it turns out, the Professor William Keeler has put me straight. He has explained that yes, the event has happened. And in 2014, the centenary, as it were, of this event actually happening, he writes this article. The Christmas truce is no stranger to popular, he uses the term entertainment. This year, more than any other, as its 100th anniversary is marked. The famous moment when British and German soldiers climbed out of the trenches in peace on Christmas Day, 1914, has been replicated and ruminated upon in history books, film and propaganda, and now in advertising. On Christmas Eve 1914, the conflict that was soon to be called the Great War had dragged on inconclusively for almost 5 months. Most of the powers on the Western Front had assured their populations that the war that began on July 28th would bring a quick victory by Christmas. German soldiers confidently marched to the train stations that would transport them westward, and they would be shouting, "Nach Paris," to Paris, while French troops heading in the opposite direction, Berlin, to Berlin. It quickly became evident that these war plans were doomed, as under the deadly firepower of the machine guns and heavy artillery, the powers were forced to dig themselves into long lines of parallel trenches that stretched from the North Sea to Switzerland. Throughout the autumn and early winter of 1914, periodic efforts to break the stalemate failed. In the meantime, the belligerent governments unleashed a powerful propaganda campaign designed to strengthen the morale of the soldiers at the front by assuring them that their efforts were essential to the preservation of civilization. The main feature of those propaganda campaigns, captured in hundreds of posters, printed and circulated widely, was the depiction of the other side as the quintessence of evil. But this attempt to demonize the inhabitants of the opposite trenches as subhuman beasts was suddenly contradicted when a large number of German and British soldiers spontaneously launched what was come to be known as the Christmas truce. On Christmas Eve 1914, both sides erected Christmas trees on the parapets of their trenches and began to sing Christmas carols. On Christmas Day, soldiers from both sides climbed out of the trenches and advanced into no man's land, where they exchanged treats and holiday good wishes and arranged for the burial of dead comrades caught between the two lines. It was actually German soldiers that made the first move, with the British soon to follow. An experience of peace in the midst of the most horrific conflict. Powerful, isn't it? The sequel goes like this. The sequel to this Christmas truth was the resumption of the human slaughter that took the lives of some 9 million soldiers before the war was over, a month before Christmas, 1918. Now, I leave that story as incomplete with you, because the reality is that when we experience, as it were, the blessing of peace as only Jesus can bring it, it may cause us to consider that that's it, I'm okay. But the journey continues for each one of us as people who possibly, as a result of our relationship with Jesus, we're actually able to reflect that relationship by being peacemakers, by actually responding to the conflict that we see around us, by engaging in a life course, a life direction that Jesus himself took. Hence, when he's given the name Prince of Peace, it gives you an indication of where his life travels. It's not a title, it's not a crown, it's not a robe. It's actually a life dynamic. It's a life direction. It's a life influence. It's who he is. So as we talk about, as we quite legitimately are able to, we talk about our relationship with Jesus. And I know that it's clear, John 13:35, it says the world will see that we are Jesus' followers by the way that we love. But here's another dimension that we can anticipate people will be looking for. We'll be peacemakers. We'll be people who can carry something of the character, the identity, the nature of Jesus as the Prince of Peace. So my second takeaway is one that actually causes me to be unsettled. The first one gives me this wonderful sense of anticipation about freshness, a new start, new beginnings, and knowing the Lord's made provision for that. That's part of the momentum of my journey. But then there is this experience that says, oh, the blessing of the peace of God, that Paul says passes all understanding, but it's very experiential. And it's very life, as it were, shaping, transformational, because it makes us a people who respond to circumstances differently as Jesus himself did. So I don't mind lining up, as it were, to experience this blessing of peace. Spoken of in that prophetic word that Leon quoted. The Prince of Peace, the Prince of Shalom, the Prince of Completeness. It's a beautiful term, that. I'm near complete. Are you near complete? Well, I'm complete as far as I have advanced at this point of time, but I know the Lord's got more work to do. So there's a sense of incomplete. So I want to come under that blessing in order that the completing process continues. I hope you can track with my line of thinking here. But it is, to me, it's that exercise that takes me outside of something. Oh, I feel really good about Christmas time because I experienced the peace of God. But in actual fact, yes, it's a beautiful blessing, but it's actually, it's an activating blessing. It's one that says, I want to know that completeness so that I can be responding even more in a Christ-like fashion to places of conflict, to places when there's unrest, where there's injury, there's hurt, there's pain, whatever, that I actually discover this blessing is transformational. The term appears in the Gospel of Luke. Here in this narrative, this blessing, this is when the angels get all inspired, like the choir did in that initial presentation at the beginning of our celebration. that says, glory to God in the highest, on earth peace amongst those whom he is pleased. And we're looking for that peace. And we know that in the New Testament, it takes on even more of a very earthy expression. It talks about this peace being a sense of oneness, a sense of unity, a sense of harmony. Now, there's a challenge for the Christian community just on its own. But then, as I experience the blessing, I discover that it takes me further and further into places where there is this unsettledness, there is this conflict, there is this contesting, there is this bit that people just are not at ease, and there's not a oneness. So I seek the blessing. I seek the blessing of the peace of God that passes all understanding that comes to me through that relationship with Jesus as the Prince of Peace. So I present you with two takeaways this morning. They are my takeaways, and I don't mind. I think Elaine came out with a similar takeaway from last Thursday night's home group meeting. And hopefully you can go from this place at least remembering those two words. I haven't got a 27-point message this morning, just the two. The opportunity to begin in a relationship with Jesus, and parallel, in partnership with that, the opportunity to have a fresh beginning with Jesus in this season. And the second word, to experience the blessing of his peace, of his completeness, influencing my incompleteness. So I invite you to stand with me as we finish our celebration this morning. I'll pray for two things. Okay, and you can possibly anticipate what. Feel free to stand. Sometimes I don't make it all that clear, but now I'm making it very clear. Please stand. In this season that none of us have been in before, in this day, in this time, in this moment, the Spirit of God is here to bring